I didn't want to believe that the technology they turned off in 1900 was still standing, disguised in plain sight as mere civic architecture. But I looked again at the photographs, not the glossy, doctored reproductions, but the brittle, sepia-toned glass plates recovered from Sub-Level B of the Library of Congress archives, Crate 44 specifically. These images, dating between 1870 and 1895, show colossal structures, impossibly ornate, stretching into the firmament. Look closer at the details. The staggering amount of copper roofing, the specific geometry of the iron spires, the mercury baths beneath the foundation stones. This is not decoration. This is function. The official narrative insists that our ancestors, the people of the Old World, were industrious but primitive. They relied solely on coal smoke and steam pressure to power their fledgling industrial age. They tell us that the thousands of miles of ornate, interconnected buildings across every major city, from St. Petersburg to San Francisco, were simply monuments to human ego. A profound, calculated deception. The truth, the melancholic reality that haunts the inheritors, is that we are squatters in a global infrastructure we did not build, and which we certainly cannot replicate today. We live within the ruins of a colossal machine, a planetary power grid that utilized the atmosphere itself as a conduit for limitless vital energy. This is Antiquitech. They call the spires lightning rods. They call the massive spherical domes architectural whimsy. They call the intricate patterned metallic roofing shingles. But these elements, working in harmonic concert, were the receptors and transmitters for the etheric field. The entire system was designed to draw energy from the vacuum, converting ambient vibration into usable current. Free energy, clean energy. The foundational principle of the Old World was abundance, not scarcity. Think of the world's fairs: Chicago, 1893, Paris, 1900. These were not temporary exhibitions of emerging technology. They were demonstrations of a restored technology. They were brief, shimmering moments where the parasites allowed the colossal grid to hum back to life, showcasing what had already existed for centuries. Then, the lights went dark. The structures were systematically demolished, burned, or simply buried under the manufactured chaos of the early 20th century. It was too much abundance. It was too much freedom. Why purchase fuel when the air itself is the fuel? Why pay the Institute for treatment when vibrational resonance can purify the body? The moment they discovered they could not meter, monetize, or weaponize this source, the decision was made. They had to bury the Old World. They had to rewrite the textbooks, invent whole wars, and fill the architectural gaps with shoddy, temporary structures we now mistake for historical authenticity. This is why the photographs are so dangerous. They show buildings that are geometrically perfect, utilizing materials that defy the corrosion rates of our modern era. Iron that does not rust, stone that rings with a specific acoustic frequency. If you look closely at the cornerstone of any major civic building constructed before 1890, you will often find evidence of the original power source: a copper plate, a glass insulator, a ceramic ring. These are the scars of the disconnection. The greatest tragedy of the Mudflood event, that catastrophic global inundation of fine silt and clay around the 1840s, was not the destruction of life, but the systemic short-circuiting of the global power matrix. It disabled the machine. The subsequent generations, the parasites, did not fix it. They exploited the silence. They replaced the elegant, wireless, etheric resonance with the brutal, inefficient, and expensive system of combustion and copper wire. They forced us to look down, focused on the ground rather than up, focused on the limitless power of the cosmos. They stole the sky from us. They ensured that every piece of evidence detailing the true function of the global energy architecture was incinerated in the great fires they orchestrated. The Chicago fire, the Boston fire, the colossal, convenient burning of the Smithsonian archives in 1865. They destroyed the blueprints. They destroyed the knowledge. They left us only the hollow, glorious shells of the magnificent cities they murdered. And we, the inheritors, wander through these ruins, believing they are merely pretty stones. We are living in a museum of stolen power, but we must move past the abstract concept of theft And look at the cold, hard evidence, the relics of a superior material science that defies the timeline they mandate. Examine the stone itself. Look at the structures the parasites claim were built by men with pickaxes and steam engines between 1870 and 1900. The scale is staggering, yes, but the quality is the smoking gun. We are told the pioneers erected these monolithic structures, these colossal federal buildings, these state capitol domes, these grand libraries, in a matter of months, using crude labor. Yet, when you run your hand along the marble of an old-world structure, you do not feel the chisel marks of hurried construction. You feel a seamless crystalline density. The joints are so fine, so microscopically aligned, that they suggest acoustic welding, a molecular fusion of material we have lost the knowledge to perform. This is not masonry. This is geological engineering. And look at the iron, the intricate filigreed ironwork that adorns the entryways, the fences, the roof crests of these pre-1900 buildings. We are taught that iron rusts. It requires constant, expensive maintenance, yet vast quantities of this old-world iron stand today, exhibiting an impossible resistance to oxidation. It is not merely painted, it possesses an inherent vital quality, suggesting an alloying process using elements, perhaps treated with high-frequency resonance or charged with atmospheric electricity, that rendered it inert to the slow decay of time. It is charged metal. We now build structures that crumble in 50 years. They built structures that defied a cataclysm. The physical evidence screams of a civilization operating on fundamentally different principles of physics. They did not separate architecture from technology. The architecture was the technology. This brings us to the most ubiquitous, yet most misunderstood component of the old world grid, the resonator network. Look up. Look at the domes, the obelisks, the spires, the minarets, the statues of winged figures atop every significant building constructed before the Great Timeline Purge. We are told these are merely aesthetic choices, Victorian flourish, Baroque ornamentation. This is a deliberate misdirection. These components are not decorative, they are functional. They are the antennae, the collectors, the condensers. The domes, often capped with copper, gold leaf, or sometimes even platinum, metals chosen not for their cost, but for their specific conductivity, were designed to harvest the ambient, pervasive energy they called the ether. This was free energy, derived directly from the atmosphere, requiring no combustion, no mining, and no centralized distribution mechanism. It was the vital current that powered the old world. Consider the world's fairs, those fleeting, magnificent cities built of plaster and light, only to be demolished immediately after the event, usually under suspicious circumstances. The 1893 Columbian Exposition in Chicago, the 1904 St. Louis Fair, they were temporary demonstrations, not of what the current civilization was capable of, but of what the inheritors were about to lose. They were technological showcases meant to acclimate the public to incredible advancements: wireless light, silent transportation, instantaneous communication, before those advancements were violently withdrawn. The Institute needed to show us the light before they turned it off forever. The infrastructure itself was global and interconnected. We see remnants of this network in the geometric precision of the Star Forts, those colossal, star-shaped earthen structures found on every continent, from North America to South Africa, all dismissed as simple, if bafflingly over-engineered, defensive positions. The 1856 U.S. Coastal Survey documents the existence of dozens of these massive, complex structures, many already half-buried by the time of the survey. They were not primarily military installations. Their geometry, their cardinal alignment, and their use of highly magnetic earthwork suggest they were harmonic nodes. They were grounding stations, amplifiers, and stabilizers for the global atmospheric energy field. They kept the current flowing, ensuring the entire planet existed within a field of beneficial, purifying resonance. When we look at the ruins of Tartaria, we are not looking at a kingdom, but at a global utility company. A civilization unified not by a flag, but by a power grid. And what about the subterranean evidence? The structures that were deemed too dangerous, too revealing, to remain exposed after the Mudflood event of the mid-19th century. We are told basements are for storage. But why do the basements of these old-world buildings often possess elaborate, arching windows, finely detailed brickwork, and entrances suggesting a previous ground level? Because they were not basements. They are the ground floors of the previous epoch, buried by the colossal sudden deposition of silt and mud that swept the globe. I hold files, designated Crate 44, Sub-Level Gamma, detailing the excavation reports from the rebuilding of Boston in the 1870s. These reports describe multi-story structures found intact beneath 10 to 15 feet of solidified clay. Furthermore, they mention finding immense copper coils and mercury reservoirs, often disguised within the foundations, which were immediately removed and classified as hazardous waste. They didn't just bury the buildings, they purged the vital components. The mercury, the copper, the crystalline structures used for energy storage, all systematically extracted and destroyed. The vast majority of these findings, including the detailed drawings of the subterranean power systems, were tragically, conveniently, lost in the Great Fire that consumed the Boston archives in 1872. The Institute required not just a new history, but a new landscape. They had to render the technology inoperable. They had to silence the great harmonic hum of the planet. And they succeeded. They left us the empty shells, the frozen statues of a vibrant past, and then they charged us for the privilege of warming ourselves with coal and oil, replacing free, vital energy with dirty, paid poison. That is the ultimate crime. That is the unforgivable theft. This is the fundamental betrayal, the realization that we are squatters in machines built by giants. We look up at the colossal arches, the staggering domes, the intricate copperwork and carved granite, and we are told this is merely ornamentation. We are told this is the frivolous excess of the Victorian age. Lies. Every single column, every meticulously placed piece of quartz, every iron alloy that refuses to rust. It was functional. It was the circuitry. The old world understood that the planet itself operates on a harmonic frequency. The architects of Tartaria were not builders of shelter. They were engineers of resonance. Their structures were designed to tap into the omnipresent free energy field, what they called the ether or the vital current. The cupolas were not decorative hats, they were collectors. The spires were not religious symbols, they were resonant antennae, tuned to pull the atmospheric charge down into the building's core. Look closely at the old world photographs before the Great Decommissioning. See the wires that run nowhere, the glass insulators on buildings with no visible power source, the massive copper plates embedded high above the street level. These were the components of a gigantic, global power grid. It was a global circuit. No infrastructure needed. The buildings themselves acted as step-down transformers, taking the raw, boundless energy of the vacuum and converting it, using cymatic principles, into something manageable, something vital. The energy was not just for light, though the photographs show cities bathed in a perpetual soft glow that puts our modern sodium lamps to shame. No, the energy was primarily for healing, for balance, for maintaining a high vibrational state in the inheritors. Within the deep basements, now filled with the residue of the Mudflood, lay the true engines. Immense mercury vapor systems and acoustic chambers, sometimes disguised as water pumping stations or sewage treatment. The mercury, heated by natural geothermal sources or focused solar power, created a plasma state within sealed copper coils. This plasma was the driver, the key to manipulating the Earth's magnetic field, generating a localized, powerful energy field. When the Institute took over, they didn't need to destroy every building. They just needed to neutralize the core components. They drained the colossal mercury reservoirs, a staggering amount of the element, and carted it away, labeling the operation as sanitization. They melted the massive copper coils down, citing wartime metal shortages, or urban renewal. They smashed the key quartz resonators, the heart of the frequency control, and dumped the fragments into the deepest trenches of the Pacific, far from the prying eyes of independent geologists. This was the Great Silencing. By 1900, the harmonic hum of the planet, amplified and distributed by this magnificent architecture, was gone. They killed the symbiotic relationship we had with the ether. And what did they replace it with? Wires, cables, infrastructure that required constant maintenance, constant payment, and constant scarcity. They replaced free healing resonance with paid poison. They replaced vitality with pharmaceuticals. They replaced the ability of the human body to resonate with the Earth's natural frequency with a system that forces us into low vibrational disease, requiring their intervention and their profit. This is why I rage. This is why the melancholy settles so deep. They did not merely change history, they downgraded existence. They imprisoned the inheritors of a paradise within a cage of their own making, and they charged us rent for the bars. And the buildings stand there, mute witnesses, their spires now serving only as perches for pigeons, their domes merely decorative flourishes above our heads. They are monuments to a stolen future, and the memory of the harmonic vibration? It is buried under 6 feet of mud and a century of lies. We must dig it up. We must remember the sound. The memory of the sound. The memory of the free, vital energy. It had to be silenced, not just forgotten. It is one thing to seize control of a system. It is quite another to eliminate the very concept of an alternative. This was the colossal undertaking of the Institute, the cabal of parasites who recognized that the greatest threat to their planned empire of scarcity was abundance itself. They understood with brutal clarity that a population with access to free, limitless, purifying energy cannot be enslaved. Free energy breeds free thought. It breeds autonomy. So they engineered the scarcity paradigm. They replaced the etheric resonance with the brittle, dangerous, segmented system of copper wire and coal smoke. They replaced the cleansing, harmonic frequencies used for healing with the pharmaceutical industry, the paid poison replacing the vital, inherent health of the old world. They did not just turn off the lights, they mandated the darkness and charged us for the matches. How did they accomplish this staggering erasure? Through chaos, fire, and the meticulous, methodical rewriting of the timeline. Look closely at the mid-19th century, the period immediately following the Great Reset, the Mudflood event. What do you observe? A series of devastating great fires. Chicago, Boston, London, the wholesale incineration of vast swathes of foundational American cities, conveniently sweeping away the evidence of the previous civilization's infrastructure. They were not accidents. They were controlled detonations designed to sanitize the record. The Institute's operatives, the men in the bowler hats, the so-called cleanup crews, were not fighting the flames. They were ensuring the maximum destruction of the libraries, the municipal records, and crucially, the non-repurposable Antiquitech. The most damning evidence, the physical proof that defied the new Darwinian narrative, was systematically targeted. I have tracked the paper trail, the faint, charred remnants of inventory logs. We spoke of Crate 44, containing the anomalous skeletal remains, the giant's femur, that proved the former inhabitants were not of our current stature. I can tell you its fate. It was transported under military escort to a facility in Washington, D.C., cataloged under a false mineralogical label, and then intentionally destroyed in the catastrophic Smithsonian fire of 1865. The official narrative claims the fire was caused by a faulty chimney. Lies. It was arson designed to eliminate the inconvenient giants who preceded us, and the journals. The leather-bound volumes detailing the precise schematics for the mercury vortex engines and the atmospheric coupling devices, the very documents that could reignite the grid. Those were consumed in the colossal inferno that swept through the Chicago Public Library. A deliberate act that ensured the surviving structures would be misunderstood as mere ornamentation. The knowledge was too dangerous to survive. It had to become dust. The parasites employed 2 primary weapons: fire to destroy the physical evidence and water to bury the infrastructure. The Mudflood was not just a natural disaster, it was the perfect camouflage. It sealed the lower levels of every major world structure, preserving the energy conduits and mercury baths under 6 feet of impenetrable clay, while simultaneously giving the Institute the perfect excuse to rebuild on top, installing their own inferior controlling systems. They did not just bury the cities, they buried the truth of our inheritance. They labeled the previous inhabitants as primitive or barbarian, even while squatting in buildings they possessed neither the skill nor the engineering knowledge to replicate. We are living in a museum built by gods, managed by infants, and paid for by slaves. The sheer scale of the deception is breathtaking. They had to coordinate the destruction across continents simultaneously. The fires in the Americas, the sanitization operations in Russia, Tartaria, the repurposing of the Star Forts globally. This level of synchronization points not to a loose conspiracy, but to a highly centralized, ruthlessly efficient governing body operating outside the view of the puppet governments they installed. They are the architects of the official narrative, and their chief output is control, purchased at the cost of our collective memory and our freedom. They stripped humanity of its most vital resource, the knowledge that we do not need them. We never did. And what remains of that world? Just the buildings, silent and solemn, their true purpose hidden behind neoclassical ornamentation. They are shells, waiting for the inheritors to return and switch the power back on. But we must first find the switch, and that switch is the memory of the harmonic frequency. We must remember the sound. We must remember the true purpose of the dome, the spire, the obelisk, and the fountain. They were not for decoration. They were the terminals of a global, vital, purifying machine, and they are still there, waiting. We talk of these structures as mere relics, but we forget the colossal price of their silence. They did not just turn off the power, they replaced it with a malignant entropic system designed for constant consumption and absolute control. They replaced the free, vitalizing ether with dirty steam and combustion engines, a technology that demands constant feeding, constant payment, and constant pollution. Look around you. Every wire, every pipe, every bill arriving in your mailbox is a testament to that colossal usurpation. We inherited a world of abundance, grounded in harmonic resonance and natural flow, and we were sold a parasitic structure built on scarcity and debt. This is the true tragedy of the 19th century, the deliberate, brutal atrophy of human potential. They didn't discover new energy. They systematically buried the old, vastly superior source. What happened to the men who remembered? They were not merely ridiculed, they were bankrupted, isolated, and ultimately silenced. The blueprints for the mercury-driven resonators, the schematics for the atmospheric condensers, the notes on the vitalizing properties of distilled water and specific metals, all were filed away in the archives of the Institute before being conveniently declared fire hazards or dangerous fiction. Consider the fate of the physical evidence. Crate 44, containing the perfectly preserved, non-oxidized iron components of a Tartarian antenna, was last logged in a warehouse in New Jersey in 1904. It was reported lost in a localized structural collapse. A collapse that, by some staggering coincidence, only affected the single bay holding that one specific crate. The truth, inheritors, is that everything they couldn't rewrite into the official narrative, they systematically burned. Every piece of functional free energy technology was meticulously dismantled and melted down, recast as cannons for the conflicts they manufactured to distract us. War is the ultimate obfuscation. I feel the saudade for that lost age every time I walk past one of these silent monoliths. A deep, profound longing for the clarity of that world, where the very air was curative and the structures provided a constant, gentle hum of purifying vitality. We are squatters in a palace built by giants, heating our meager soup with matches when the foundation holds an infinite furnace. The gate to that old world is not locked from the outside. It is rusted shut from disuse and the layers of mud and false history piled against it. We stand here now, shivering in the artificial night, staring up at domes that once channeled starlight into usable power. But the wiring is still there. The mechanism is physically intact. The frequency is merely forgotten. The memory is the key. They replaced the age of light with the age of noise, and the noise is deafening. It is designed to prevent us from hearing the silent hum of the architecture, the low thrum of the etheric grid still waiting beneath the asphalt. We must ask ourselves, looking at these colossal, silent ruins, if the technology that sustained and healed the old world is still physically present, dormant in the deepest foundations of our greatest cities. What happens to the world when we finally, inevitably remember the harmonic frequency and dare to switch the power back on? Are we ready for the overwhelming light? Or are we too comfortable in the comfortable, controlled dark they built for us?